freedom. If we were to give up dead in that courthouse, if we were to just say, this is it, we were turning the nation to those that felt they could have used power.
The first case that I filed was filed in state district court, and that was to validate the petition that Anna Russell had already said was validated. In addition, I filed what's called a mandamus petition in appellate court, and that is a special vehicle where if you can prove that a government actor has acted so outside their ministerial authority that it's clear and it's an abuse as a matter of law, you can literally leapfrog the district court, go straight to the appellate court, and gain a very quick and decisive victory.
Andy Taylor is just phenomenal. And the beautiful thing about Andy, he's a thinker. So being that it's his profession, he never took it for granted. So while we were in the court, they didn't know that he filed a writ of mandamus to the Supreme Court.
We knew we were in for an attempt to run out the clock by the city, that they could, they'd either run us out of money or run us out of time in order to win this, no matter what our rightness of our cause was. And that's a typical age-old tactic. But we also had this mandamus track that went directly to the appellate court, and then to the Supreme Court.
There is a scripture that I often pass on to my parishioners, and it's in Psalms 37:1. It says, "Fret not thyself of evildoers, neither be thou envious of them, for soon they'll be cut down like the green grass." And I stood on that.
There's an old phrase that we've all grown up hearing in grade school, and it's that you just can't beat City Hall. Well, I'm here to tell you that when you're in the center of God's will and your local counsel is not a lawyer, but it's Jesus Christ, you can beat City Hall. And we did. And what ultimately happened is that case went all the way to the Texas Supreme Court, and we got not one, but two unanimous decisions, victories in our favor, saying that the people's right to vote had not been respected by the city of Houston, and Mayor Parker in particular. And so I'm glad to say, after a year's worth of work with Jesus at the center of the case, we were able to gain victory.
The court unanimously, not 8-1, not 7-2, not 6-3, 9. All 9 judges ruled that the city did not perform its legal obligation. It went around the charter, it went around the law.
The Supreme Court made that decision. That was a huge win. So we were thrilled, and we felt like God gave us a great victory. Notwithstanding the skill of our attorney, which we've already said was a godly man, and even he said, God has given us a great victory in this.
Fue algo maravilloso. Todas las personas finalmente iban a ser consideradas para votar en este importante asunto.
So when you don't give up, you still have hope in you. And you know that above every decision, there's someone higher. And yes, from someone higher, even in men's world, in the natural world, the Supreme Court of this great state of Texas spoke out and said, give the people the right to vote. And they really slapped the mayor and said how wrong they were.
We celebrate, and we know that at least we know that there's still good people believe in the biblical and believe in the Constitution of America is still in place. So there's hope for us. Unfortunately, we have to go that round, spend so much of time, energy, money in order to ask for and able to get what we asked for in the beginning, which is say, let the people decide.
If they did not vote to rescind the ordinance, it automatically went on the ballot. And so while they voted to put it on the ballot, it would have been on the ballot anyway if they did not rescind the ordinance.
The mayor didn't stop there. Even though she had been forced to put this bad bathroom ordinance on the ballot, she decided that she was going to try to rig the political outcome of the vote by writing language in a deceptive way.
Once you submit the signatures to the city, the ordinance is suspended and essentially takes it off the books, and that's something we learned in the process. So legally, we got to the ballot language. The ballot language has to say, do you want this ordinance? Yes, or do you not want the ordinance? No. But the mayor's language was reverse of that. You want to repeal the ordinance and essentially take an act that didn't exist, and so a yes vote would be no, no vote yes.
The city charter says for an ordinance to pass, it has to be voted in favor thereof. That's the terminology. And you can't pass an ordinance voting no. You have to vote voting yes. And so she was trying to put it on there as a no vote instead of a yes vote. And so we told her she was wrong. We told her it wasn't right. We asked her not to do it.
Nosotros pensamos que todos los concejales de la ciudad votaron para poner esto en la boleta. Pero la ciudad escribió un lenguaje tan confuso que el pueblo no lo iba a entender. Y nosotros pensamos que la ciudad deliberadamente escribió este lenguaje para confundir al pueblo.
They have an agenda to push. They will try everything they can. Even in Vietnamese newspaper in the community, they're talking about it, and they say that this language is just like so familiar with the way that we see things that is happening in our own country. That when people have certain way they want is to come out, they will try everything they can, even the language of the ballot.
By flipping that, she was trying to accomplish this political result. She knew most people hated Hero and wanted to vote no, but they would then be tricked into actually voting yes. And so I had to file a third lawsuit. I went before the city council and I looked the mayor in the eye and I said, Mayor, it's never too late to make the right decision. Why don't you use language that's legally proper and not play games? The reaction I got was she made fun of me. She said bad things about my physical appearance. She also said that I was not a good lawyer. And then as I was explaining why we believed that the language was improper, she got up and walked out of the room.
She tried to now say, well, I'm going to write it. And then she wrote the law to where yes meant no and no meant yes. And it was just unbelievable. So then they go back and they filed again to the state Supreme Court. They turned around again and warned her, you better change that language.
It wasn't even a week until the Texas Supreme Court, the highest court in Texas, unanimously, yet a second time, said that she had violated her constitutional mandate and that our rights had been trampled. And so they flipped the ballot language to the way it was supposed to be. A yes means a yes, and a no means a no. And so it got put on the ballot.
That's how much disregard the mayor, who put her hand on the Bible and said, I'm going to fulfill the laws of the state of Texas, and I'm going to serve the people of Harris County, Houston, and all of that. That's how much disregard she had for the authority of Texas and how much she was determined to get her way no matter what.
There was a lot of things that she did I didn't understand. The only thing I could ever liken it to was whenever Moses went to Pharaoh. And the Word of God says, and God hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he wouldn't let the people go. I kept thinking that maybe her heart's getting hardened about this. She's not thinking right. You know, she's constantly making bad missteps, subpoenaing sermons, not putting it on the ballot, making missteps and misstatements. It just made a whole fiasco out of this whole thing on her part. And she has nobody to blame but herself that it went down in such a fireball.
This was the first time that a sitting mayor of a huge city like Houston was unanimously rebuked by the state civil highest court. That ought to tell you something. After we won the legal battle, and we're gonna get the chance to vote our conscience at the ballot box, the other side didn't stop there. In fact, they doubled down and they tried to trot out national prominent figures, people like President Obama, the Clintons. The White House gets involved. We've got people like Sally Field, who's well known for her career in acting, all together coming out and trying to turn this into a referendum on gay rights. And that's not what this was about.
Well, I'm very disappointed in the President of the United States to even get involved in a local issue here in Houston, Texas, and the Vice President. Interesting to me that the President of the United States, because of his relationship with Elise Parker, would literally put in writing, I support the mayor in this hero ordinance. For 7 years, President Obama has been in office, and I don't know of one federal discriminating civil rights case that went on in the city of Houston during his 7 years. But now, here it is, an ordinance that's primarily designed for LBGT people. And then in the letter say, well, I normally don't get into local issues. But don't get into local issues.
We had to fight against the media. We had to fight against television. The mayor controlled the news media and television so that they wouldn't cover some of our activities. She said, leave it alone.
Here we were with this little ragtag coalition of churches and citizens up against the might and power of this machine, and it was pretty daunting.
Our understanding is that they poured millions of dollars into this effort because they had to win this in the South and in Houston, because if they can win in Houston, they can win anywhere. And so we saw that coming in, and we knew then that unless God helped us, the cause was lost. Because if money could buy it, they had the resources to do that, and they did that in every way possible.
I believe that when we see the money, the amount of money is pumped in, and the backup of the higher authority, we know that we got the higher authority, the highest. So people pray. Our people, some they fast and pray, and they have people, churches in Vietnam and other countries that know us. They pray with us that God will mobilize people and stand up and vote no to this ordinance.
We scheduled an election night watch party to just gather the faithful together, those who wanted to be in one place and watch the election results come in. We had been told we were as much as 10 points behind in the polling, a week or two out from the poll. We didn't really believe that. What we did know was that the polling had shown if people understood the issue to be about discrimination, we lost by 10 points. If they thought of the issue in terms of restrooms and public safety, we won by 10 points.
I knew without any doubt that once that ordinance was put on a ballot, that the people that had a conscience, that not only whether they were religious people or non-religious people, they saw it for what it was.
We stood that night watching as the numbers started coming in, and our eyes open and our hearts starting beating faster as we knew that this was coming to the end that we had hoped for.
61% in a liberal city, that's how many people voted no. After all the machinations and all the trickery from the city attorney Feldman and from Mayor Parker herself, 61% of the people weren't confused. They walked in, they punched no, and when you look at the ballot, only 4% of the folks skipped that race. So when they came to the ballot that day, a lot of them were looking for just Prop 1 because they knew what they were doing. And when they voted no, it was a ringing indictment of the city, the city's legal practices, the mayor, and this progressive secular liberal agenda that has no end.
I will never forget, I was actually leading a group in Israel on election day when the voters of Houston overwhelmingly followed the lead of the pastors and rejected this radical policy of the mayor. And I remember on a tour bus in Israel as the entire bus erupted in cheers as we got the election results.
To see what an overwhelming decision by the people proved that we were right. The message that was sent to the mayor of the city of Houston, that the people of Houston that did not want this ordinance, that they were wrong in saying that Houston needed to be like other cities. Instead, other cities needed to be like Houston.
The people that beat this ordinance was predominantly from the African American community. If that doesn't send a loud message, I don't know what does. But more than anything, that was not so much a message from Black America as it was a message from God to let these people know. I don't care who the president is. I don't care who the mayor or the governor is. God has the last word.
I have my wife and my daughters there that night, and we all celebrate. And I stand up and say, this is what I'm fighting for you. So you will be safe in the future.
Man, I really broke down in tears. I praise God. I thank God for a victory. Because I kept telling God, every morning, you got to get a victory. It's up to you now. We've done all we can. Now you got to get you a victory. And when he got his victory, man, I shouted.
You know, the biggest lesson that I received in this case didn't have anything to do with the courthouse. Didn't have anything to do with the petition and all of the legal issues that were involved. It had to do with having faith. There were times in this case when I lost my faith, and I began to worry that we were going to lose. And then the community that was surrounding me and praying for me and supporting me would help restore that lost faith. And I realized if you're in the center of God's will, you're in a safe place.
What's incredibly unique here is that men and women of faith, all colors, all parts of the city, all social economic strata, all came together and said, this can't happen on our watch. And not only do I think it's divinely inspired, but it's flat the coolest thing I've ever seen in politics.
Cada cosa que tú crees que es correcta, tú tienes que pelear por eso. A pesar de que tú creas que hay una montaña muy grande, tú tienes que saber que nada es imposible para Dios.
We learned that no matter how difficult it looks, no matter what comes against you, if we stand together, we would never fall, because when they touch one of us, they're touching every one of us. And then when we come together, unity is the strength that brings out great revivals and brings out great changes. And we saw that even in a city like Houston, by coming together, we can send a message to the entire nation that this is what keeps and makes really America a nation of hope and prosperity and a nation of values.
This city's ministers has left a legacy for all ministers in this nation now to look at. There is the template of what to do, how to do it, and to stand up for what's right and not to be afraid. And I challenge any council member, any government official who is afraid to stand up, stand up. Uncompromising men are easy to admire, and people will remember you for standing up and doing the right thing and not backing down.
evil is never destroyed. It's always a challenge to the Christian faith. And good Christians must always be willing to meet that challenge. It's coming up again. It's not over. We have to be ready to do it again.
To say this was a victory of the church is really not true, because I can tell you an overwhelming number of churches in this city were for this ordinance. An overwhelming number of churches in this city no longer adhere to biblical principles. So therefore to say, boy, the churches rose up and spoke. No, the Bible-believing evangelical churches rose up and spoke. The silence from so many churches of all sizes and all denominations